They're probably going to do some shit. Like, what is it now? You have to take off your shoes because that asshole tried to put bombs in his shoes. And what are they going to do now? You have to wear a mask on the plane even though everybody's vaccinated, or
I really hope that they're gonna. Some dude is gonna be like, "Oh, it's the bikini bomber."
The bikini
Or like
bomber.
the bra bomber. So all women have to start taking their fucking bras off when they fly.
God, that would be so nice. All right, guys, welcome to Red Morning. You've been asking a bunch. What was the topic? Female bosses. So Carl and I were like, all right, let's do this as a topic. Oh God, I just realized my thing is clipping here. I gotta fix the audio.
Yeah, just to give you like a don't eat paint warning on this. Most of the things I say about female bosses, they will also apply to men with bitch mindsets.
Ooh, that's a
Men
good.
who think men who think like women tend to also lead like women.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Here, I gotta. Is that still clipping or is that good?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, good. Fuck it. Let me know, guys, in the chat if this audio sounds off. Yeah, I'd agree. It's weird too. It was always a certain position. Like directors, fine. C-suite, fine. It was always like that manager level where I noticed, like, if you were bitch made, like a male boss acting like a chick, it was always that level. I think that, and I don't think that's an accident, but I don't know. I couldn't explain or articulate like the reason why. Do you know what? Like, am I off my rocker here, or do you know what I'm talking about?
I think the reason I've seen them in C-suite as well, but I think the reason why you don't get a lot of them is that C-suite is very exclusive.
Right.
They're only going to let a certain group of people in there. That's why a lot of the time, if you hire a new CEO, he'll fire all the other C-suites and bring in his own people. And
How good
that's
is that?
partly because you really don't want anyone who's bitch made in your CEO group, because that never ends well. Because there's a lot of politics. Like, I've always argued that politics double for each step up the corporate ladder. So once you get to director level, C-suite level,
Right.
that's when you get the maximum amount of politics internally. But then you also have a lot of problems with on board level. But mostly on board level, if you run into political issues, that's going to be different owners maneuvering against each other's interests rather than, it's being purely a bitch moment.
What else are you going to find a podcast where people are talking about bitch moments in corporate culture? Can we just take a moment to laugh at that?
But like, I worked under a female director for years.
Mm-hmm.
Worst years of my life, I'd add. But that was mostly because it's a personality thing on top of a sex thing.
Right.
Because the CEO's job is kind of to keep everything in order. And if you have a CEO who's really good at creating chaos,
Mm-hmm.
then that's going to they're going to need to hire on people to clean up after them. And most of the time, that means there's going to be a lot of money to be made there for consultants.
I'm starting to think that's the giant benefit of consultancy. Well, I mean, we already talked about that, where it's not just you need somebody other than an internal person to explain how to do things, but when things screw up, you can always just point to the consultancy, and then the consultancy's people are gone, and it's just this big puff of smoke, and accountability is just gone. It's damn clever.
Well, a lot of the time, the reason you hire a consultancy is they usually justify it by saying we don't have the right type of knowledge internally. But a lot of the time, it's about trying to have a scapegoat while you're also doing unpopular things, because the consultant is going to come in, clean things up, and then leave.
Right.
So the consultant doesn't have to care about the corporate culture, the corporate politics, or being liked, whereas the CEO ideally doesn't want to be known as that bitch who fired all my friends.
God damn it. Sorry about this. All of a sudden, a bunch of YouTube windows opened up and it just blasted the sound.
So
I'm trying to focus on this goddamn conversation.
At least that's my kind of ground take on why you hire consultants. But I also think maybe the female bosses tend to hire consultants more than male bosses. And I think that's a general conflict tolerance thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever I ran into a shop that had one of those consultancy revolving door problems where essentially they're spending more on consultants than they do employees. That's always been a female CEO.
Really?
Yeah, I've never had that with a male CEO. For an extended period, you can have that if, let's say, you get a CEO that comes in to an organization and is taking over, and they have to orient themselves and figure out about the organization. At that point, they may get a team from something like McKinsey or Boston or something.
Right.
That come in, they do a kind of a review of the entire company, all the divisions, the corporate structure, everything, and they deliver a report to the CEO to inform future decisions. But then they're out after probably 6 months. But if you have like consultants that are on for, they're essentially not project based anymore. They're like employees that you pay 3 times as much to have on.
Yeah, contractors essentially. But that's weird. Like if you want to be a contractor, a lot of companies hire contractors, and they pay like 50% more than you would earn if you were an employee there because you don't get any benefits. But then hiring a company to come in as like your account people, that's gotta cost more because, like, I agree, Deloitte, like I just use Deloitte as the example because that's the one I have the most experience with. Deloitte pays people fairly shitty, and they have an insane like hourly cost. And it just seems weird that the company would rather go that way than just hire the guys directly as contractors. Because it's not like Gartner. Gartner doesn't really have a quality control per se. It's not going to give you a higher caliber of person any more than you could hire yourself. I don't know. I guess there's something about the branding to it or what?
Well, the branding is one thing. And the other thing is consultants work harder than contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Because consultancies generally have to renew their contracts over time. Contractors are usually hired for longer periods.
Right.
So logically, with a consultant, a typical contract may be that, okay, you're on for a year for this specific project, and you have an option to extend that by, let's say, 6 months. See what's going on here. And with contractors, you're usually going to be on for longer or for specific projects, and you renegotiate again after the end of the period. So you can keep the consultant on for a longer period of time without getting a price hike, whereas with a contractor, usually you get a price hike at some point.
Fair enough. I guess that almost makes sense.
Plus, with the consultants, you always have that option of swapping out. So
I did that with Omada. Yeah, that's fair. Do you know the company Omada? They're like an identity access. They're like mid-tier stuff. Not big by any means, but I remember that because the project manager that they gave us was a fucking idiot. He was one of those... Do you know like the stereotypical, how to put this without getting demonetized, Southeast Asian, very agreeable guy that isn't doing anything but understands? Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've actually had that. I've had that argument once when I was doing the project manager role, where they complained to the company like he's being a Nazi about everything, and like the company was like, "Well, you pay him to be a Nazi. That's the only point he's there."
See, that's a good thing though. This guy was literally useless. We'd ask him for things, nothing would come back. Our project manager was basically doing all the heavy lifting, and all he was doing was scheduling meetings and wasting everybody's time. I eventually had to get the guy who owned the account. He would come down for like quarterly meetings. I would just get him drunk, do the 2 martini lunch thing, and then hear like, what's up with this guy? And then he just fucking unloaded, bitched the guy out for amazing. I'm like, sweet. Now they're all on the same page. Let's get rid of him. I guess it was one of those like my uncle owns the company, or like we were college, but like one of those kind of situations too. So we had to do a bit delicately, but it was nice. It's nice to know some of the old tools from the military still work.
Well, getting drunk with someone is a time-honored tactic.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it you saying, was it China or Japan, that if you don't get drunk with the guy, they just don't trust you?
In Korea, you have to drink with them. In China, you generally have to eat with them. But it's kind of similar in all, like in China, it's considered rude to discuss business before you've had dinner together.
Okay.
And in Korea, it's more that they have this thing where they're like, they want to know who you really are. And the best way they have of doing that is getting you shit-faced ass drunk.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't know why. I enjoy that. I don't know why we gave that up. When was the last time the States and Canada had that? It was like the 1970s. And then they just stopped it in the 80s. And I think it was like one of the worst things we ever did.
Well, I think they stopped it just because of the cocaine.
Oh, yeah, that was it. They started doing uppers instead of downers. Then we end up with NAFTA. Son of a bitch. All right. So I guess it's time now. Let's get to the topic. Everybody's asking about female bosses. I don't think they're talking about like female C-suite. I think guys are talking about like direct supervisors and managers. I'll start us off. When I got posted to my first ship, they gave me a watch supervisor, and she was known, I didn't know this at the time, but she was known as the most hated sailor on the West Coast. Not just of the communicators, like my trade, all the Navy. And I could not describe a more like manosphere perfect enemy or foil ever. Dude, this chick was, first off, she was like me. It's kind of a minority, but you couldn't tell which one. Short pixie cut, kind of frumpy, very bitchy, didn't know her job, sucked up to the officer class. Like, there was a joke where she kind of snuck into the combat officer's cabin once, and everybody used to, like, every time you walk by her, just wipe your mouth. I was like, oh my God. But she would, like, step on every guy underneath her. Even the girls hated her. I think that's something that guys here don't really know. Like, with female managers, girls don't like them either. Girls hate them.
I remember this. There was like a newspaper story like a couple of years ago about this woman who was like, I'm going to start an all-female company and it's going to be great and it's going to be girl powery and we're all going to get along. It's going to be amazing without these fucking men.
I remember that. That was awesome.
A year down the line, she's bankrupt because girls are like sleeping with each other's boyfriends and ostracizing each other during lunch.
Oh, yeah. It was, dude. It was so on the nose, like Ian Ironwood. I don't know. You remember his old post where he talks about the swing set of solipsism, where he mentions, because guys, what is this? For us, it's like the initial fit testing. Like you said, get drunk together. Do we see you as a person? All right, you're in. For girls, it's like you're automatically in, but then it's constant cutthroat backstabbing and like status jockeying afterwards. Basically reality TV. And that's
you also have to keep in mind, like, the major thing you're going to see, though, with a female boss is like, because if you have an all-male company, the mode of solving problems is, okay, we'll have a meeting, we'll make sure we know what the problem is, we'll hash out a solution, and then we'll execute it. With female-led companies, you see a lot more change after that, because the point isn't necessarily to find the solution, it's to make sure everyone's on board with what you chose. So I tend to think that politics is more similar to the female mode of doing things, at least 100%. Now.
Because there's no outcome. Like, dude, I can't think of a single person I ever worked with in the private sector who was happy. They always at one point had that line like, fuck, I wish I could be a farmer. Because, like, at the end of the day, my hands were dirty and I had something to show for it. Or some, like, variation of that. I don't know. Is that a Canadian thing? Or do they do that in random undisclosed location country that you're at too?
Randomistan.
Randomistan, exactly. But do they do that there where they have that need to like, oh, I wish I could be a mechanic because those guys probably feel great?
Well, I think everyone has that. At least I've had that myself sometimes when I've been out on various jobs and you see like guys actually doing stuff and seeing that they've gotten results, because like the results of my work most of the time is paperwork.
Yeah, unending paperwork. It just kind of goes into a hole though. Like, how many policies have you written where it just goes into a folder, goes onto SharePoint, or what's that Microsoft one, whatever, or just sits in the content management system and nobody ever looks at it except for once every 2 years when you hire Deloitte to come in and review your policies?
Well, I've had it happen a lot. I think that happens most of the time, but when you're paid well to write something, I don't really care if it goes into a drawer, if it's being used or not.
Oh, well, I mean,
Uh,
yes,
that was
mostly
much
no,
harder
but
when I was working internally and you actually put work into doing something to improve the company. And then oh, what a nice report. We're just going to go ahead and shred the shit out of that.
that used to get to me. It did at first. Somebody best advice I ever got is like they're paying you for the attempt. They're not paying you for the result. And I'm like, all right, I can live with that.
We'll say that like the best thing about people who've written all those policies that just go into a content management system is when the consultant comes in
Mm-hmm.
and just kills everyone by actually enforcing those policies.
I agree. All right,
Because
sorry, I'm looking at something here in the chat too. Anyways, keep going. Yeah, enforcing the policies.
There is a strategic element to that. Like I've always thought Stalin was kind of epic in the way he took over the Communist Party in the Soviet Union.
Okay.
Because I think it was Lenin or Trotsky went off on like a vacation at the Black Sea for like 3 months because they had tuberculosis or some shit. And Stalin was a bureaucrat. So he just went through every party policy and he rewrote everything so that only he understood how the party's policies worked.
Mm-hmm.
So when there was debate like who's going to take over leadership, Stalin could kill every other candidate just by referring to policies he wrote about it.
Which is weird too, because like everybody ignores policies too.
Yeah, everyone does, but at the same time, though, especially with C-levels, if you point out that everyone is ignoring policy, their first reaction is, well, people can't just ignore policy. People have to follow policy. And then they'll start enforcing it for a little while.
Dude, that's just like the military. The first action is the overreaction and then slowly walks back over 6 months to something normal and reasonable. I hated that every time it happened. But yeah, back to the female boss one. But that was the part that I really disliked the most about her. I'll call her Brink. I'm not going to give out a real name here, but
come on, full name and picture.
Name, picture, rank. I think she's an officer now, or probably retired anyway. Guaranteed, she was one of those types that as soon as she marries somebody with a high enough rank, she was fucking out. The MRS degree for the military guys, first line of defense. But no, every time something would happen. Like I told a story before about how we had like a 10,000 message month, which is just insane workload. Didn't even have time to pee. One mistake got made out of like 10,000 of them. And then the first thought of everybody was like, oh my God, we got to change this and change this and change this. And she was leading that charge. It wasn't until like my buddy Jay just put up like, dude, 1 in 10,000? Like what's the error rate for everybody else? And it was like insane. Like nobody ever had a success rate this much. And we're not going to change everything now because all we're going to do is just make more mistakes if you change the system right now. Just eat it. But that was the part that bothered me the most, is that any time anything that was done made her look bad, she had to automatically like rewrite everything. Stop what you're doing. Everybody needs to fix everything over the smallest mistake. And it was like that weird risk averse, like jitteriness. And I think that was what annoyed me the most. I mean, other than her fucking horrible personality is what annoyed me the most.
I've actually seen that at a client before, where they had like this really dutiful, organized woman in charge of their, let's say, their customer support center.
Right.
And support is always going to be a cost driver.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that you could hire an unlimited amount of people to work support, and you're never going to have enough people.
Right.
But in her case, what I noticed was she was actually spending more running a support center than our entire sales and marketing division costs. So she was essentially using about 20% of the profits just to run support.
Huh. And that went on for how long before anybody even thought to pay attention to that?
Fucking years, man. And the whole reason I think for it was when you're risk averse and you're deathly scared of making mistakes, you build too much redundancy into the system. It's the same reason I won't work with security architects that have a military background.
Well, you don't like triple redundancy and some old 1977 computer that doesn't even have parts for it anymore because no matter what happens, old Betsy will keep working.
Well, it's just And with her, it was just on the level where she actually had like a guide on how to answer the fucking phone.
Really?
Yeah.
Phone answering policy. Ahoy hoy.
And, everyone had to like write a report at the end of the day about mistakes that were made, and then everyone who made a mistake had to get chewed out. So it was totally insane. And in the end, you could cut that by 50, 60, 70%, and you'd still deliver a level of support service that the client thinks is okay. Because
Well,
you
yeah,
don't
because
really
they don't
want,
see any of this stuff.
and for the most part, with like the whole service thing, it's a balance. Because if all your clients are happy, then you have too many people working support. If everyone has their calls answered instantly or their emails replied to within 12 hours and their errors fixed within 24 hours, then obviously you're spending way more on support, and that's an extra cost you need to tack onto the product. And I've seen, with the exception of security architecture, which are mostly male field,
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen women build those levels of redundancy. And I think that comes from risk aversion and the risk of, if they make a mistake, they're scared they're going to be kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah. Oh God. I see that even at home. My girl, like, she's switched on, very switched on, good at her job, kind of in an irreplaceable position because everybody else was so lazy. She just decided to learn new things, and now like all those new things are canon. But yeah, even her, she's worried. Like, one mistake sometime, I'm gonna lose my job. I'm like, you're not gonna lose your job. Like, they did furloughs. They laid off like 80% of the staff for the first part of COVID. She was like one of the few people that stayed. Her boss and her boss's boss had to leave for like 6 months, and she had to take up their roles. I'm like, trust me, you're fine. But it's like hardwiring. They refuse to think otherwise.
And I think that's one of the things that I think drives men crazy, because we're kind of the duct tape and glued sex.
You heard it here first. That's going to be the title for this section. Duct tape and glue sex.
Because, well, we don't really care that a solution, for the most part, it's not like important that the solution is always perfect. What's important is, okay, the fucking tailpipe on the car it's on now. If it falls off again, I'll use more tape.
Or what's the classic one? I don't need to go to the hospital yet because I can still walk it off. It's like, you should get that tumor checked, sir. I'll get around to it.
Yeah, it's like 7 pounds hanging off your neck.
And that's a weird thing too, because it makes sense. If you want innovation, if you want things to move forward, if you want progress, you kind of need that riskier behavior. And I don't think this should be a controversial thing to say either. Like, how much research do we need that people to take chances have success and failure, right?
Yeah, and I think you're kind of seeing this with the COVID handling, because I'm betting a lot of the people who are working for the government in those bureaucracies are women.
Oh, so many. It's at the point that I don't even see guys in them ever. Ever. Like, when was the last time? I don't know if you watch press conferences from Randomistan, but every time they talk about like the government medical staff, I haven't seen one male politician, doctor. The only one that ever tends to be the guy is like the premier or the prime minister. Everybody else is chicks.
What's the difference between the premier and the prime minister?
Premier is like a governor. Prime minister is like a president.
Fair enough. No, but I've been noticing that too, that there's always a ton of women. And if you look, I'm pretty sure if you did statistics country to country, you'd find that the countries with the female heads of states are going to be the ones with the harshest COVID policies.
Oh, that's a good point. Because I know what Germany's got a track record for being absolutely fucking risk averse. Canada, might as well be a chick. Yeah, and the only ones that didn't were like the states. And who did the states have? They had the Orange Man and
the states and Britain, I think, are the only ones.
And he actually had that just let it run its course policy, and he buckled eventually, but they held the course for quite a while, did they not?
Yeah, but at some point you kind of have to buckle on that, because you're not going to. It's too hard to get reelected if you're the guy who killed like 20,000 people. That's why you see the countries that have run policies like that. It's never the politician that's the face of the policy. It's always some unnamed bureaucrat that wouldn't be fired no matter what he did.
Oh, the trust the doctors nonsense, dude.
Like I always thought it was kind of funny that Trump was like, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters, and people were kind of shocked about that. But like, I know schools where teachers have molested their students. They don't get fired; they just get transferred to a non-teaching position.
How Catholic Church of them. That's awesome. All right, I guess quick break.
The same thing, like
go.
kind of just as a joke thing with the the George Floyd trial, which I found hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I heard this. I heard the summary.
Well, I just kind of read Derek Chauvin's CV, and he was a training officer with 4 reprimands for excessive force. Shouldn't you really be a training officer if you've been reprimanded for using excessive force 4 times?
That's awesome. No, that's totally like he's a problemed kid. Let's promote him out of the unit thing. Oh, I love that. I mean, I don't love it because it caused a whole bunch of shit in $1 billion slavery industry, but whatever. You know the one though, like in the military, if you have somebody you can't stand, like it's easier because you can't kick people out of your unit unless they break the law. So what they do is they promote the person so that way they can go to a different unit and kick them out, and that's how you end up with like all kinds of middle management people that are completely incompetent because nobody wanted to work with them, and it's the easiest way to get rid of them.
Yeah, you also have to keep in mind that a lot of those people have ambitions about going higher up, but they've kind of hit their Peter principle level, so they're never going to move beyond that position, and that makes them sort of resentful.
Is the Peter principle the up to the position of your incompetence, or is that the other one?
Yeah, up to your position of incompetence. The one you just described is the Dilbert principle from Scott Adams, that people get put into middle management to get them off the line so they stop fucking shit up for everyone else.
That's the one. I always get those two confused. Fuck, those make me laugh, though.
There's a good super chat from Wando, too. Major annoyance with female bosses is that they're too nosy about your private life and take personal offense if you ain't the sharing type of guy.
Oh, that's
I think that's a female thing, too, with, like, sharing about their personal lives. Because, like, I'm usually in mainly male groups whenever I work. And most of the time, the only time you learn something about a guy's personal life or personal preferences is A, what he prefers to eat for lunch, B, coffee or tea. And unless you're traveling together in some capacity, you never hear shit about their personal lives.
Yeah, generic stuff.
Or like
maybe you'll learn his wife's name if you have like, family events or kind of shit at your thing.
Yeah, like basic logistics things like, okay, I know this guy has a kid because he said he had to leave the meeting early to pick up his fucking kid.
Yeah. Incidental information. 100%.
But with women, it's kind of expected for you to share your personal life with them. And that's how my tactic for that at an earlier job was just overshare hard when they ask.
So they just tune it out? Dude, I don't know.
That's like how I got that's how I got the nickname Mr. 21 among the women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because some girl asked me, like, hey, you said you were going on a date yesterday. How did the date go? And I was like, it took me 21 minutes to have her naked in my bedroom.
Talk about owning it. Didn't get me too. There you go, boys. MGTOW Fanity just got crashed. Carl tried it out for himself. Yeah, I think it's overblown.
But again, that kind of goes back to the the sexual harassment picture, the one with the guy in the suit who's like, "Good morning, Susan," and then you have the geeky dude in the fucking sweater with like, "Hello, Susan."
Oh yeah, and
it's kind of that. Yeah, it's kind of that same level. Like you have to prep people for understanding your personality in order for that type of behavior to work.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with that more. Day one, start from it right out of the gate. And be attractive. You can't be weird about it. As soon as you get weird and creepy about it. Actually, here, perfect example. Another guy I worked with, I've got so many of these like Britch is a Bink story or Brink is a bitch stories. He was one I used to work with. He eventually switched over to like clearance diver, which is kind of like Canadian Special Forces. Super fit. He was really switched on in his job, but couldn't keep his foot out of his mouth. And our boss, the Brink, she kept doing the overshare thing. Tell me about your dates, all this kind of shit. Turns out he has like an anal fetish. So he's talking to her openly the same way he talks to guys. she hears this stuff and shares, and we're all laughing around and about it. As soon as like this group leaves, she uses that shit against him for like the next year. Try to like I could overhear her talking to the other supervisors, talking about getting this guy reprimanded or like ruining his PERs. Those are like you use those for your annual evaluations, and bringing all this personal information up again. So I almost want to think it's like a fact-finding mission so they can weaponize it later, whether they know they're doing it or not. So that's why I hate sharing. Like I'm like you, I'll overshare, but I make sure it's the most useless pablum information ever, so it never comes back to me.
I think, yeah, so keep that in mind. It's the same reason why if you have plates and you're doing something illegal, never tell them about it.
Well, how many guys, every doxing in the manosphere, how many guys have been doxed in the manosphere and it hasn't been because they opened their mouth to a chick trying to impress her, and then she just fucking threw him under the bus with it for a little bit of clout? Isn't that like...
It's like everyone, isn't it?
It's all of them. I can think of the DDJ, even Robert Fisher, it was some random chick that's like ran a pseudo-anonymous thing and she went and reported to the Daily Beast, and I've yet to see a guy getting doxed because of some like OPSEC slip up. It's always, oh, I can impress this chick every single time. If you guys could think of an example, put it in here.
Because I didn't know a DDJ got doxed though.
Yeah, well, for a little while there. He's just that big, fat grocery store guy. Oh, that's right. You must have missed all that. I guess he was basically doing all the kind of dirtbag shit you'd expect on a TLC special. And then one of the chicks was all for it, and then she was against it. And then she just plastered all of his personal stuff online. And everybody had a good laugh on that because it was right in the middle of his like fuck Rolo little campaign. So it was cathartically funny. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it just sounds like but Sargon was the same thing, I think.
Oh, he used to be... Oh, I guess he did used to be anonymous. I didn't know why he went, like, IRL.
Yeah, he got doxxed by someone.
That was probably a chick. Somebody was telling me he used to be in, like, the pickup scene back in the day, and he had, like, a huge Asian fetish, so I guess he was like John then. Probably one of them called him out for it. I actually am curious. If somebody puts it in the chat, though, I'll post it up here. I want to see, has anybody been doxxed because any reason other than oversharing to a chick?
Well, I can understand the temptation. Like, if you have, let's say you started a subreddit that you own with like 400,000 people on it, I can kind of see you bragging about that to try and get laid.
Yeah. I think that's why like the Rule Zero group does so well. Because everybody is like in a relationship, so they don't need to like pick up chicks. And so there's never any temptation to use like, hey, we're on a podcast that gets 130 people watching and not hitting the like button. Want to smash?
That does strike me as funny though. Like the kind of no point things guys will brag about to try and get laid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have my own chainsaw.
Tell me where that is from. Is that like a hunter thing or what?
No, I have no idea. I was going to come up with something and I just chainsaw for some reason fell into my head.
Yeah.
Like I have my own shed. You won't believe how much pussy I'm shedding.
I don't know why I'm finding that funny. Dude, I actually feel like crap today. I ate a whole Costco chicken pot pie yesterday at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm so full, like I'm still full. Like 15 hours later. I don't know how. Now I know why everybody in Costco is a giant fucking ham beast.
I went out drinking, so I'm still a little bit hungover.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. These are always, though, is everybody... I think 80% of these ones, I'm either day drinking or have been hungover. Yeah. I don't know what to follow up with that is, but whatever. It's the point.
Yeah, I'm usually day drinking, but not today.
Kind of chainsaw. There we go.
Well, it's kind of like there are certain things you brag to other men about, like your anal fetish, girls you bang, power tools. Those are like men brag about things.
Yeah, only you bang 9s and 10s.
Chicks couldn't give a shit. It's like a chick trying to tell you how many different forms of foundation she has. You don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm. Best you're going to get is a placating. Good for you, babe. That's awesome.
Actually, like the only time I care about what kind of makeup a girl is wearing is when she gets it on my sheet and I have to clean that shit off.
Oh, that's every girl. I used to love white sheets when I was single. And then, yeah, that's I was buying white sheets constantly. It was a very expensive habit. I would have been better off just picking up a drug habit the way it was working.
Yeah, I actually ditched a plate once because she wore so much fucking perfume
Mm-hmm.
when she came over, and I told her like 3 times, don't put on that much fucking perfume.
Oh, was she scent marking your place pretty much?
Yep. And so every time she'd been over, I'd have to wash the sheets, because I'd get a fucking headache just from the remaining perfume on them. But also, in case I had another chick over and the sheets smell like Chanel number 5 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. And did you find? I know I could never get that perfume scent off in the first wash. It always took like a second wash. It would always still be there faintly. Did you find that, or is that just because I sucked at laundry?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but I just got like laundry detergent that has kind of that same smell profile. So if there was ever a question, oh, that's my laundry detergent. It just
Hmm.
smells like hoe.
And just don't brag about your laundry skills to your boss. All right, let's get. I guess we should get back on this thing here. So female bosses. So it was two guys from the private community plus one guy last week. They actually wanted when you couldn't make it. They were like, "Oh, this has got to be a topic," and I'm like, "Yeah, we'll give it a shot." But I think so. What is it? The problem with female bosses, the risk aversion, the personal info, doxing kind of shit. There, I was trying to think.
All the gossip and politics too.
Yeah, the gossip that gets me
Because
too.
if you have a female boss and she has females working under her, they're going to be trying to take her down at all times, and she's going to try to be friends with them, or she's going to be like real fucking. What's the movie with Meryl Streep again? The Devil Wears Prada esque.
Oh yeah, the super bitchy ones.
So they're going to go one out of two ways, and they're also going to be real inconsistent with how they treat their employees. Like men do kind of that too, but not to the same extent that women will do. Like
Mm-hmm.
if a female boss likes you, you can get away with anything. You could bang a chick anally in front of her on the conference room table and get away with it.
Oh, I see you have some Deloitte time behind you.
I'm just thinking, like, for some reason, I just got one of those images in my head of banging like a girl in the ass on a conference room table, and you get one of those like anal accidents.
Oh, see, I'm picturing her like accidentally slamming. You know those little triangular shaped VoIP phones that every office has that
Yeah, yeah.
sets up a conference call. Bloop. Please enter the code now. Not now.
Suddenly activates that huge ass Cisco system with the automatic camera with the autofocus, and suddenly you're
Oh yeah, and the
broadcasting a
screen
sex stage
starts
of
rolling
Tokyo.
down. Dude, that would be the most epic way ever to like have to get policy enforced on you. We just have
Well,
a
I
new
didn't
we have
know.
a new anal sex in the office policy that you have to sign.
And then you're also going to have the same problem that you have in any kind of game,
Right?
uh, where like all the biggest like top of the world gaming guilds and shit, they don't have women in them. And the reason for that is whenever you have a woman, there's going to be guys that try to fuck her.
Oh yeah, and they'll screw it up for everybody.
And that's the same thing with work. Once females get in there and you have guys that are single, they're going to try and fuck some of the girls. And it's fair enough. Statistically, a lot of people meet their spouse at work, but statistically, you also have a lot of sexual harassment lawsuits and shit. And these days, even asking a woman out if she really needs to take you out at some point can backfire on you.
Oh, 100%.
So, like, I've always had the principle, like, if I want to bang someone I'm working with, I'll wait until either they or me quit, and then I'll try and do it afterwards.
So you don't even play the whole if it's a different department, like if there's no chain of command in between you two, you're fine with that. You won't even play that far.
No, I don't. I don't. Most people do, but I just found it easier not to.
I don't blame you. And to be
It's like,
fair, a lot of those guys, it's because they don't know where else to go to meet. Like they don't do anything other than work and go home and play Xbox. So for them, this is literally like scarcity.
yeah, I think that's an important factor. And for me, at least, there are thousands of single women in any kind of major city. So unless you're like working in a company that has an office far fuck out in the boondocks,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be okay with meeting other people that you don't work with. But I do recognize that it's going to be a bigger problem in smaller communities, especially those like, those old type of factory towns where like everyone is working at the plant.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
At the same time, though, if you're working in a factory, I wouldn't be too concerned with it just on the basis that those aren't the kind of environments where, this type of politicking comes into play. Like, you're not going to have some chick try and railroad you because she wants to work the license plate press.
Yeah. I want the foreman position, god damn it. It's like, imagine that Me Too accusation. I don't think that would go anywhere, even if they tried. It's
Like,
literally the only time you have old boys club is when it's minimum wage.
No, so you're going to have to watch out for that one. And female majority companies, there's always a fuck ton of gossip.
Mm-hmm. It's not just gossip either. It's almost like it's like currency. I remember that one too. The Brink used to do that. Not just Brink, but we had a couple other girls. There was one chick, and I'd call her, who was the purple fuck on the McDonald's commercials?
Purple fuck?
Grimace.
Like the hamburger or whatever?
No,
Or
the
Grimace?
purple one. Grimace, I think was his name. He was supposed to be like a grape drink. I don't fucking know. He would just look like Barney the dinosaur if he had melted. You can look him up later. You'll see who I'm talking about. I always called her Grimace because she looked like that. She used to laugh it off. She was this really thick, like PEI accent, which I don't know if you've heard it, but it's like, it's as close as you're going to get to that pikey accent from Snatch. Remember that movie?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
She, every day, she would come up. Everybody hated her so much, they put her in a position that got her out of the office as much as possible. But all she would do when she would come in is just slag every other girl in the mess. Like, I've learned more about the female reproductive system just from that gossip than I ever have. If a girl gummed up the pipes by forgetting that it was their period that day and they jammed them up, I'd find out the next day. And it was always, and I noticed the gossip was always the same thing. It was somebody actively like trying to fuck somebody over. Well, you did that on purpose. I didn't do that on purpose. And then it would just start the fight from there. Now, I don't know. Maybe girls are actually picking fights like this, and maybe it's just paranoia and they're looking into it, or maybe they just make it all up so there's something to talk about. But I honestly don't get it.
I think it's the same thing as when you pick random fights with your girl.
I've accidentally adopted that same tactic. I just pick better gossip terms.
Well, I just think it's one of those things with women that if there are not social stressors around them, they will create them because they want that tension. Like, I've always thought, like, most men, if you gave most men like $1 billion so they could do whatever the fuck they want, most would just go to a beach somewhere, sit there, drink, smoke weed if they want to, chill, and ideally have some buddies with them and just sit there and have fun.
Yeah, buy a quad, run around. Basically a ton of like leisure activity.
Yeah, like women, if they were put in that same position, they would still need to create, what's the best word for it? I'll just use stressors. Because they need that conflict in their life. Otherwise, their life is boring. Like, we hate that conflict. We ideally don't want it near us at all.
I agree. 100%.
But they thrive on it. So if you have a female supervisor or you're in a female-dominated company, you're just going to have to adopt and understand how that works. That way you can create your own tension instead of letting them do it. Because you can actually create that tension with less risk of fallout as opposed to the girl doing what they intuitively do.
Damn. I wish I had an example to give that as an anecdote. I don't think I've ever done that. Other than just occasionally like losing my shit and yelling at a coworker, but I'm pretty sure outside the military you're not going to be able to do that at all.
Oh yeah, you can.
Oh. You dumb bitch, what the fuck? I'm out of here.
Never called anyone a dumb bitch in a work situation, but I did call one of my female coworkers a useless cocksucker.
Ooh. That's pretty good. To be fair, the dumb bitch one, I actually got a giggle back. I think it's just they're so used to me being over the top, I could get away with it. But the useless cocksucker, I bet you that one kind of bit. That one bit hard.
Well, that was kind of the point of it too, though. It's like, I think it's Poe that said, a gentleman never insults anyone unintentionally.
Right.
But you just have to get used to gaming female bosses. Just think of it as running game. Just that you're not trying to sleep with them, but you're trying to build enough tension that they kind of want you to be their work boyfriend.
Oh my god, that explains so much. I did that. My first corporate job after the military. My director was an Asian lady. Like she was like I think my age at the time, 37, 38, something like that. And I remember she came in there. She was one of the ones that married, had a kid, and she used to come in all the time. And eventually the topic would change. Like she talked about me in the military, and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty rough in that. I'm trying to tone it down and be very nice and corporate now. But she felt comfortable talking to me about shit. And she used to talk all the time about how she just wanted to see what Tinder was all about and wanted to get it. And like all those little hints that I could be a giant slut if I wasn't a mom of two at home with my great corporate job. But she always came to me with that stuff. Greatest working environment ever. She always had my back. Any of the infighting, she always took my side on it. And yeah, that's all it was. It was literally just the same game. I just didn't escalate or try any Kino. That was it.
Yeah,
and she was the one who had the story about finding some coworkers fucking in the conference room. When you started telling that story, I just thought about that. I'm like, oh yeah. And her friend basically said, just like, turn around. Like, don't look for a bit. I started laughing.
I feel like I have to fuck someone in a conference room now. Like the worst thing I've ever done in a conference room was like bill a client for 2 hours while I did Donovan's podcast.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Honestly, they're good stories. You don't want them. I think my best one was having sex with my my officer, my divisional officer in the reserve space, which is like a mix between a gym and diesel storage. It's a cool story, but it's not fun, and I wouldn't do it again. Oh, it was before us, honey. Yeah, it was actually horrible. That was the one. That was the one dragon I slayed too. I only did it because she was my officer in charge. My boss Brink was still working there. She was livid about it, but her boss thought that was so funny that he told her to shut up and don't bring it up. And then he high-fived me and told me the story about how he did that with his combat officer at my age. So it was pretty fun times. Plus, during the evaluation next year, it was awkward and like nobody discussed it and it was never brought up. But there was always that awkward stares. Like, is anybody going to mention this?
Like in reference to like the policy thing we discussed earlier, though,
Yeah.
female bosses they use policy very selectively.
Mm-hmm.
Because they will not enforce the policy towards people they like, but they will use that policy to murder everyone they don't like.
Oh God, yeah.
And they use it to create like if a woman doesn't want the conflict of firing you or reprimanding you, they will actively try and make your job hell just so you'll quit, so they don't have to be the bad guy to fire you.
Does that sound an awful lot to you guys? Like girls who act really shitty in relationships, hoping you kill the puppy. Insert that Rollo Tomasi article here, because that's exactly what it sounds like to me. Actually, I want to find that one. I remember exactly which one. Rational Male, Please Break Up With Me, I think it's called. And it's funny. Yeah, there it is. Please break up with me. Look at that. How's that for fucking memory?
Yeah, you've done too many podcasts with Rollo. You're now throwing in his articles into your podcast.
Dude, that's my thing. I've actually read all this shit. Unlike half the guys doing Red Pill podcasts, you and I have actually read the shit that other people have done, so we can reference things that are outside of our own experience. That's why we're so goddamn good at this.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think that's one of the main things you have to look for, that if you have to quickly figure out, am I on her good side or am I on her bad side? Because if you're on her good side, you can do pretty much whatever the fuck you want. If you're on her bad side, you just have to follow policy to the letter.
The good thing about those two is there's small examples, so they're not really super important or big or anything, but yeah, where you were on a girl's bad side and they use policy like that. A lot of the times, if you're just patient and you letter of the law, they'll often do something that allows you to throw that back in their face to kind of get them off your back, like punch back, basically. It's like a bully. Bullies will bully you until you hit them in the face.
Oh, fair enough.
But I've seen that. It was my PLQ. Same kind of situation. My supervisor, she couldn't stand me, but everything I did was by policy. And not only by policy, but I had the references with me, so if I ever got called on it, until finally I got brought into the office with her and the senior instructor, who is a chief, and just told to end this shit. And then nothing ever came of it. But yeah, there was like 2 months of hell until finally I had that opportunity when she overextended her bargain bitch basement policy shit.
Well, you know, they will overplay their hand because they're not really tactical.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Barbosa has a great point in chat too, that you need to get tactical with HR, because if you have HR on your side, they'll always protect you. Like, the best investment you can do in a company is bring cake to HR.
Cake, donuts, smaller ones too. I found those work better because everybody thinks it's less. Like, I can eat 5 small donuts and it's just as much calories as a big one, but they'll think for some reason it's healthier. I don't understand why it works. It's physics. It can't be explained.
Well, it's the same thing as for women. Food you eat off other people's plates doesn't have calories.
But yeah, I can see that. The rare exception. I've seen one HR department that had one guy in it, and it blew my mind. I've never seen that before. I don't know if it would apply there.
I worked with the company that had a guy as head of HR, but he was a complete bitch.
Oh, really? Fair enough. Says yeah, his nickname is like Yas Queen.
Well, you know it's bad when when the HR director gets fired for fucking employees on the job.
Oh. Thanks,
baby. Like, that says something about the company when the HR director gets Me Too'd.
Well, I'm almost thinking that might be on purpose, though. Because you got me reminding me of, there's always like a harassment coordinator, a guy at work who was like in charge of handling any type of harassment claims and shit like that. And it was always the biggest guy who was able to harass the most people. Always the biggest asshole in the ship they would put in the position. And I almost want to think it was their way of saying, here, go learn all the rules, and now you're in charge of it. Kind of like a punishment. Although, I guess for us, it's a secondary duty, though. So I guess for the HR guy, he actively had to like pursue this career. Probably doesn't pair off very well. It just had those same vibes to me. It made me laugh. Dude,
Then again, I
haven't told this many military stories, Carl, since like 2015. God damn it.
No, I think that's different from what industry you're in too, though, because like I know some people that work in cosmetics,
right?
And that's real Devil Wears Prada from the looks of it.
I can imagine. Jesus.
Whereas if you're in, let's say you're in some kind of logistics or you're in tech or something, you're going to be in usually more pure male environments. But the biggest problem there is going to be when you have to deal with the other branches of the same company.
I find always in the tech company, it's always like the sales branch that has the women, or GCO if it's bigger. A lot of female lawyers. Marketing too, yeah. Basically anyone that's not required to produce anything of value, but needs to talk a fucking lot. There's your misogyny for the day, fellas. Who can clip that shit?
Oh, it's actually kind of funny though, because like you're seeing women take over those jobs where they don't actually produce anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just talk all day.
Yeah,
like psychologists, salespeople, marketers, influencers. Like, is there such a thing as a male influencer?
Jake Paul, but he's kind of a bitch too. So, but yeah, basically children, like trust fund children. Those are the male influencers. Ooh, see this story here. Military and my boss is a chick, butted heads at lot at first, but now she's great. Micromanages anything, but easy to stay on top of. I'm out soon, so I don't care. Oh, Carl, there is no better feeling in the world than that 6 months after you've put in your release and you just got to wait for the process to finish. Your work changes so dramatically. If you guys are in the military and you ever want to experience euphoria, either get to retirement age or put in your release. Like, all of a sudden, all the bullshit just stops. And it's not even that you don't care. It's that people realize, like, he's out in 6 months. Like, he's not gonna, like, he doesn't respond to yelling anymore. My boss yelled at me. Another female boss. She fucking yelled at me because the guy, this was that weaponized one where the military that tried to charge me with espionage, and eventually all this fucking went away. I went back to work. I put in my release. I'm like, yeah, done with this shit. And because they had pissed off my career manager so much, they sent them the biggest piece of shit in the entire fleet to replace me. He couldn't do anything. And so she started yelling at me for shit he didn't do. And I kind of looked at one point and I was like, I'm gone in like 5 months, man. Why are you yelling at me? This is the most gratifying thing I've ever had in my life. It has nothing to do with the topic here, but you guys need to know this story. Fucking Jeffrey.
It kind of reminds me of like one job I quit where I got locked out of the IT systems like 6 hours before I was supposed to leave.
I don't know why people do that. Like, I get it if you're working some shitty job, but the locking you out thing, like,
Well,
you obviously have a
case,
reputation to keep. You're not going to start stealing fucking pencils on your way out the door of $100,000 job, you know?
no, fair. No, I stole about 50 grand worth of computer equipment, but that's a different story.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, okay, fair enough. Never mind then. Apparently they didn't put a chain on the laptop, so that's their own fault.
But kind of the point here was what happened was when I switched from that job to my other job, I refused to tell them where I'd been hired.
Oh.
Because you're not obligated. Yeah, they asked who hired you. And because they were suspecting that I got poached by a competitor. And no, but I pretended to have been for like 6 months, 3 months while my time was being up.
Ah, fair enough. All right, fair enough.
So I'd do like subtle little things, like I'd have a mouse pad with the competitor's logo on it.
Jesus, that's such a dick move.
Like have pens with the competitor's logo on it just to lend people in meetings and shit.
Next thing you're going to tell me you had like the lanyard hanging out of there with your ID card for the company you're at with the competitor on the lanyard.
No, I didn't go that far, but it was funny. So I can kind of understand that they locked me out.
Yeah.
Because like they're like, okay, he's going to steal all our fucking industry secrets and share them. And I just loved seeing them go full paranoid and like, yeah, we're going to lock you out of these 4 systems. Well, those are most of my work. Well, we're still going to lock you out. Someone else will have to do it. So I just spent 3 months playing games on my phone.
Fucking score. I love those ones too, where you literally have nothing to do. So you just have to like hurry up and wait. It's so weird, isn't it, too? Because how much, I don't know, they're probably paying you a pretty good penny for like 4 or 5 months to sit there. What would that be at the end of the day? 4 months, 20 grand, maybe 30 grand. And they thought it was cheaper just to give you 30 grand to waste their time than it was to actually try and squeeze any value out of you.
Yeah, well, I can kind of understand it because you don't want a guy who you think might be going to your biggest competitor to get insights into your new strategies and shit.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was way too much fun to fuck with them.
But people already do that too. That's what I don't get about the paranoia. Like you have, most guys I knew were contractors. The big 5 banks in Canada, for example, every contractor I ever met who ever worked finance for IT has worked for all 5 of the banks. So they're already, and instead of saying, well, Toronto Dominion does this, so we're going to do this at Scotiabank, they always just say, hey, here's a great solution I got. They don't mention that they got it from the last job at the other bank, but they're like, let's just try this out. But it's like the secrets are already being shared freely. If you didn't want if you didn't want employee loyalty, and you're not hiring guys to stay at your company for 20 years, they're taking whatever they learned from you guys and applying it elsewhere. So I just don't understand the paranoia against like protecting from it.
Yeah, and at least my old employer learned that if you're dealing with things that are industry secrets, you should really have people sign NDAs that are binding for at least like 2 years after they quit.
Well, that would make sense too.
Okay, let's
but
see.
I mean, do you even need 2 years though? Because most strategies I've seen, after about a year, they've changed to the point of irreverence.
Yeah, I would just add 2 years just for that safety mechanism.
Fair enough.
Which
I guess works out well for you because then that's a negotiating pivot. All right, pay me for the 2 years.
So,
I don't know what it's worth on your...
I've never had a non-compete clause.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
what industries are big on that?
I usually try and negotiate away the non-competes, but anything that has sales or where you have your own portfolio of clients is going to be big on that.
No, I'd imagine, because they don't want you to take your clients with you when you go.
Okay, listen, we had 2 things in chat here. The Mish is asking, what's the take on having female employees reporting to you?
There we go. No closed-door meetings. Fucking telling you.
No meetings, no hitting on them, no exploiting the power balance. And, you have to expect that at least one of those girls are like, I'm going to fuck him just so I can Me Too him and take his job. That's just my general take on it. It's they may not pull that angle, but better to avoid it.
Yeah, I agree. Here, one sec. I had to go off cam, but I'm still on. Dude, I should just
Yeah.
do this. This is fucking nice. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
it's really
fucking
relaxing,
anon
isn't it?
like Carl. It is. All of a sudden, I feel way more chill. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%
except
agree. I had students when I was teaching at Fleet School, a lot of female employees. I had one female subordinate when I first got promoted on ship. Flirting out. Plus, though, when I first got on that ship, there was a female employee that was there before me, the one I replaced. Her name was, I don't remember what her name was, but she was one of those, like, she was like a short lipstick lesbian. Not that it matters for this. Well, this is why it matters for the story. And they went to Guam just before this. And the guys were like, whatever. All sailors are sailors. We're all good employees. They went and partied together. They treat her just like one of the boys. And I guess the cab ride home, she starts doing what girls do when they've been drinking too much and they start getting self-conscious. And she goes, hey, do you guys think I'm pretty? And the guys were like, yeah, of course you're pretty. Whatever. Don't worry about it. So they get back to ship and she tries to charge them all. She gets sobers up the next day, realizes it was embarrassing, her little freak out moment. She tried charging them all with harassment. So that didn't go so well. The guys got red pilled off of that. Then the next sail, they're like, okay, I'm not going to go hang with her because I don't want to get a harassment charge for getting drunk and having fun. So they left and they didn't tell her where they were going. Goes back to the chief, tries charging him with harassment again for ignoring her and excluding her from the scene. Then they were like, okay, so I don't know what to do. So they had to have like a big hullabaloo off of it. Eventually, she ended up picking up a girlfriend that was on course who was getting posted to the East Coast. And it was the fastest coastal transfer I've seen in my life. Like usually these things, people can wait up to 6 months because there's not a lot of people that move from one side of the country to the other for funsies. Hers, they had her out of there in like 2 weeks. And the point of this story that was tied to that is for female, not only employees, but peers. Nothing social. Don't flirt. Anytime you have to have a meeting, bring a third person with you. Door open. I can't remember how many meetings I've had where there was me and a female and there's always somebody there with me. Didn't matter. Didn't care. And the other person just kind of knew. Their whole job was just to sit there to make sure that nobody tried to say anything stupid. It was like body cams for police. And I shit you not. One time I heard of an example of somebody having like a normal meeting like you would, but it was with a girl and fucking all hell broke loose. She said some shit. She obviously made it all up, but that wasn't the point. By the time that all got sorted out, his review got fucked because he wasn't working while they're trying to investigate it. So there was 6 months where there was just a blank. Highly competitive. I love this fucking IRL thing. And then, since that review was fucked, they take an average of your last 3. That stalled his career for 3-4 years. Or he had 2 years before. So those 2 years didn't count. That year sucked. And then the next 2 years, he had to wait for that one to get stricken from his record. So it's like 4 or 5 years by the end of it. And that's like a permanent halt to your career. Because you got a 20-year career. It takes about 22 years to make like a chief. He was basically fucked. And he was like, you're never ever going to make it further than like a P2 or like a brand new NCO. All because he didn't want to close the door. And I was like, fuck that shit. It's not worth it, man. All right, story's over.
Yeah, we also have a good super chat from Irish Alpha here.
Oh, yeah, where'd it go? There she is.
And I wouldn't say boardroom types. I'd say it's smart to hire people to be middle managers that will have conflict with each other. Because as long as they're competing with each other, they're not bothering the C-suite or trying to get one over on the C-suite to try and take their jobs.
Please tell me more. I'm kind of curious.
Well, like ideally, you want conflict between like compliance and sales. You want fights between the people responsible for data privacy and data security to be in conflict with the rest of the IT staff and ideally the user base.
Mm-hmm.
And these are easy conflicts to kind of create because you can always get some ex-military fucker to work IT for you. And that fucker will lock everything down and be like, yeah, you have to pick up your laptop at 0600 from the safe. You're not allowed to bring it home. You have to
All I'm picturing right now
password.
is like that cell phone locker that you put it in before you enter the building. Having him install one of those.
No, not to go harder, but like ex-military IT guys in security are like the worst cocksuckers ever to work with.
Of course, because the whole plan there, like security, there's no business concerns to restrain security. So then they just get to go hog. What's the most secure thing ever? Because that's the game. And I find most guys who move up from like sysadmins to IT, especially in security, they have that same thing where they're just unidirectional. All they can think about is, I'm security, so make it more secure. You have to get those guys that learned IT from business who realize it's like a give and take between what kind of risk are you willing to take over how much security do you want.
Yeah,
that's my experience.
Well, I've always thought of like there's a trade-off between usability and security. Something as simple as how often do you have to change the password on your email? Ideally, I'd say 7 days. Because if you make it Monday and you have to switch it next Monday, and someone gets access to it, let's say Friday, there's going to be limited time for them to take data out.
Yeah.
At the same
mostly
time,
what you can do, isn't it? Where you just have to calculate what's the fastest supercomputer. If they were to brute force it, how long would it take? And just make sure you're less than that for your active path. I can't remember the name of it. The cryptology period or something like that.
Yeah, but then once you start to throw on extra security, like I love two-step verification.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's nice.
But once you throw, 13-character password with special characters and big capitalized letters, small letters, numbers, can't use the same password twice, even if it's been 2 years between them. Once you start adding a lot of them on top of each other, what you're essentially doing is the employees are going to write shit down.
Well, yeah, and that's when you get the problems of like we used to do like roams after hours to see how many passwords we could find underneath keyboards and on post-it notes and shit. We'd always find like a good handful of them too.
Yeah, now people have just switched to using password managers. The dumbass fucking thing about that is they write down the password to their password manager.
Mm-hmm. Which ends up making it less secure because what are the odds somebody's going to steal a laptop and then try to brute force a password? Probably not likely, unless you're working in like super spy shit. But the likelihood of a janitor who somebody's like, here's $50, man, get me some passwords, to walk and just do a scan of the room and find some written down passwords, probably much higher. So you're actually making it less secure with all the theater.
Yeah, of course, because most of the time, unless you're working in like super spy shit or with industrial secrets in a competitive industry and so on, people aren't going to put that much work into you. I've always argued like the perfect threshold for security is to the level where people are like, yeah, that dude looks safe. Fuck it, let's go after the next guy.
Oh, the was it the fence theory? Why do you lock your gate even if your fence is shitty? It's like you just have to make it less enticing, or don't have to outrun your bear. You have to outrun the friend. What that's the saying. Fuck, I'm fucking up my metaphors.
And I think to go back to Irish Alpha's question here, it's conflict within a company is always useful, or it can be destructive and it can be constructive.
Right.
Because like let's say you create competition between your sales and your marketing people or something, or the online sales people and your physical location sales people, that's going to force both of them to adapt and become better. But conflict can also be negative, like when, let's say, your CEO, CFO, and your controller are snapping at each other and can't work together. That's going to fuck up your entire finance department.
Ooh, a combative CFO. I can't think of another position that you need to have somebody on your side than like the treasury. Jesus. Oh, I wouldn't even know. I've never seen that. I hope you've never seen that, because if you've ever seen that, that would scare the shit out of me for whatever company
I've seen a lot of competitive CFOs, but usually those are the guys that comes from finance.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest problem you get is when you have like a CFO that comes from finance, and you have that the controller, which is essentially the head bookkeeper for the company.
Yeah.
So you can say that.
Wait, did you say controller or comptroller?
I think I said comptroller.
Okay. I was like, that sounds a lot like a comptroller. It turns out my ears are fucked.
No, I could have said the wrong thing too. But anyway, so the head bookkeeper and the CFO are kind of supposed to be able to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people in charge of the books, they're concerned with the past and what's happened in the past and everything being on point. The CFO is mostly concerned with the future.
Right. Which makes sense.
if you get kind of a competitive thing there, you can very quickly deadlock your entire finance department. Because what happens is, like, the comptroller can investigate the CFO, and the CFO is technically the comptroller's boss, so they can fuck them over that way. And both sides won't be able to fire the other without the CEO being involved, because in theory, the comptroller is there to also control that the CEO isn't embezzling shit.
Right.
And the CFO is there to make sure that the comptroller isn't embezzling shit.
But and then I know a lot of guys, they don't want to bring it up to the next level too, because then there's always something they're embarrassed about. Like just the fact that you're bringing this shit to the CEO's attention is not going to be a good look for you either. So you try to handle it without bringing him in. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the whole thing is strange. The only time I've ever seen the argumentative, like combative stuff work is like red team, blue team shit. Like with developers having the guys that are the bug fixers and guys that are the programmers kind of have like a rivalry between them. Rivalries work great, by the way. And the other one was the female boss, Brink. The one thing I can say about her that was awesome is that every person that worked underneath her hated her so much that we got along fucking perfectly. Like, say what you will about that. And I don't know if anybody's in a position to hire people, but if you can get one fucking asshole just below you that everybody else hates, you'll probably have like a pretty tight working community just by hating her. That's that commonality.
Yeah, that's the lightning rod.
Oh, that's the name for it. That's kind of cool.
Actually, well, you have a lightning rod in any kind of organization just to make sure that they get all the shit and everyone else doesn't.
It's the same, George Bruno effect.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same reason you have a black sheep in every family, because the family needs someone to take out all their shit on.
Interesting. That's awesome. Now that I know, I'm going to go look up the lightning effect, and I'm going to see all this I'm going to, holy shit, and start mapping this to life. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, I always thought it was just like it happened to be that way. I didn't think people actually like actively tried to do it. I thought I was being all edgy with this great new red-pilled sexual strategy. It's like, no, that's pretty common. Fuck. All right, fair enough.
Well, usually you want to have certain roles. You always want the pedantic cunt because he will kind of distract from you.
Mm-hmm.
You always want someone who's more of a renegade than you are, in a sense, to use that term.
Yeah.
Who just doesn't give a shit about the rules, because his rule breaks are going to draw all the attention away from your rule breaks. Like, let's say he completely doesn't give a shit about compliance at all and just goes on and sells.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to keep compliance focused on him while you're doing semi-shady things on the side. It's the same thing I told you with the flying thing. If you wear a suit and walk behind two stoners, customs are going to be too busy with those two stoners to pay any attention to you.
Hey, it works. What the hell?
Or like a good reason to have a black friend, if you're white, is that way the police will harass him, not you.
It took me a second. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh. Man, tell him you got a gun in the glove box. Trust me, it's cool. No! Dude, you're starting to sound like my buddy Chris. He used to do that in foreign ports because he knew I had that rule where, like, I don't fuck around in the foreign ports because the cops there think I'm a local and they won't treat me like they treat him. I piss on the street, they'll fucking arrest me. That you piss on the street, they'll make you pay the fine right there and then. Like, screw that noise. So he'd always say some dumb shit every time cops were around. I'm like, dude, knows it would fuck with me. But that's what he used to do to me. He used to whatever. That's gonna start to tell Nelly stories again. I gotta stop mumbling. Holy shit. Wine more, please.
Oh, come on, wine more, please. I wasn't being racist. I was being anti-cop.
Yeah, you're being anti-cop. That's what I thought. Don't worry, Wine More Please is another minority. That's why he can be so open about this stuff. He's got that roof Korean energy.
Well, I still remember, like, I tweeted out at one point something like, I'm so white, I actively trash talk police officers during random traffic stops. And Ed Lattimore was like, 2 days later, I'm still laughing at that shit.
That one's funny.
Because that's kind of like I've always found those funny when you have those. You do have them on World Star Hip Hop a lot, where you have like the women who expect no one to ever hit them, and then some dude just fucking cold cocks them.
Oh, dude. I was hooked on those for a long time. Those are, those are so funny. And
And
they
then
always
you
have to
also
start
have
it
like,
off with, what the fuck you gonna do? And then you're like, oh, that's what he did. All right.
and you have like a similar category of like Karens trash talking cops and getting tased, and it's fucking epic.
Do you ever see the remakes of those? Like there
No, I
was one
didn't.
where the chick was talking about like the blood of the Lord and fucking pointing at the cop, and then they redid it so it looked like she was shooting like lightning, like Emperor Palpatine. And then the cop pulled out his taser and they gave it like a lightsaber effect. So it's damn funny. What can I say? The Star Wars memes are always the good ones. Do better than the movies anyway. Ooh, that's a good question. Here's one from Ugly D. Actually, you know what? You probably are the person to ask this one, Carl, because from what I understand, you're the funniest guy in the Manosphere, officially. With your whole, when you used to do like open mics and shit. When is the comedy hour show coming in the Red Pill?
Probably never.
Yeah, probably never. I guess
It would
there's
be
only
fun
so
to
many
do.
whammon ain't shit jokes you can make.
Well, it would be funny though to have like a red pill animated series, like something like Family Guy. I think that would could potentially be really funny.
Ooh, that one would work too. Some guy has a daughter who's a feminist and a kid who's red pilled, and he's a simp for his wife. And hey, isn't this Family Guy? I'd like those ones. Yeah, Patrice O'Neill. Everybody references him. To be fair, with Patrice O'Neill, I love the guy. Very switched on with relationship dynamics, but the dude couldn't put down sugar. I'm just saying, maybe he's not red pill Jesus.
Well, everyone needs a vice. But
I
my
suppose.
favorite is still like everyone at some roast Patrice with that, making jokes about him dying of diabetes. And then
Oh,
like
I
6
remember that.
years fucking dead.
Yeah, he got up there. He's like, I was thinking of toning this stuff down, but then I get here and you guys are like, "Fuck you and your diabetes, lose a foot, motherfucker." I was like, that was like the
Yeah, I
Charlie
think
Sheen roast too, wasn't it?
yeah, something like that. Well, Eric, I think Clary's funny, but the funniest thing in the Manosphere is the a meme fight going on between Clary, Jack Napier, and the Masculine Geek guys. That thing has me in stitches a couple of times a week.
Oh yeah, those guys are pretty savage with it too. Like, what was that one? Isn't there the one guy doing? He's like doing those deep fakes where he put Clary and Jack onto like Brokeback Mountain scenes.
Yeah, and then I think Clary did like a fake newspaper with Napier and the Masculine Geek guys in it.
If you guys haven't checked these out, do them. They're the meme lords, man. Absolutely hilarious. It's good though.
I
They
do
don't take
think
themselves too seriously.
Will say though, Ryan, the fact that like you've been trying to like grow your fucking Twitter account and shit for years, and like all it took was you just spamming memes.
Not even good ones. Like I'm not even up half the time. I just think, what's something stupid about Whammon? I'm like, that face when something stupid about Whammon. Expressive fucking Pokemon in the bottom. 10,000 likes. I'm like, fuck you guys. I'm quoting like psychology research and ways to fix your marriage. You're like, fuck that. Just let me laugh. Let me laugh at Karen.
Well,
The
I do
fresh and
think
fit business model.
well, I do think humor. I think for guys, like the best mental health thing you can do is just hang with other guys, have a laugh, and do something.
Oh, 100%. Because you learn
Like
so many things are just common.
if
Like,
you
what were
want
you
to get your
saying?
buddy out of depression,
Mm-hmm.
take a him, three, four other guys, get a case of beer or two, and go play paintball.
Ooh, good call. Try and aim for his pinky finger or his neck. Those are the two spots you love. You can leave a mark there. Last forever.
Oh, geez, that reminds me of why I haven't been to paintball in like 3 years.
Why is that? Because of the neck wounds?
Well, because the people I was playing with, we got so good that we were able to consistently hit outside the protected parts. So, like, you hit someone in the neck,
Oh.
or you catch someone on the side of the mask, not on the mask.
Dude, I hate those ones. Because it's like literally as if he got really shot. You have the whole head drop and everything, and paint is just, it's up your nose, everywhere.
I think the worst one for me was some dude caught me in the ear.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did my ear hurt like hell, I also got paint in my ear canal, and it was like 3 weeks to get that shit out.
Oh, My worst one was the neck, and it's always the same way. You know how it happens where you're like under a hill, you just go to look up, and then that one sliver of neck, obviously that's where the shot's gonna go. It catches you every time. I've gotten hit twice that way, and then eventually I just stopped looking up.
But at least
fuck it, whatever's there can stay there.
But it's fun. And it's something that helps, and I think for team building as well. With when you have a lot of women involved, it's always going to be those kind of. It's always going to turn into a fucking baby shower.
It's not just well, when you mean baby shower, you just mean stuff that's like I don't know how else to describe it other than cringe, where it's always lame and you can't have any fun, and it has to be the most risk averse thing ever, right?
Yeah, it's lame. It's cringe. It usually involves wine.
It always involves wine. I've never seen it not.
And it's always like you're sitting there bored to your tears. Like, can I just have something stronger than this fucking rosé? Why do we only have rosé at this fucking team building conference?
To be fair, I did have one. I think was she a CFO? Yeah, CFO. She was a raging alcoholic. She used to tell me stories about how she used to make rum cake and put so much rum that she could never get the cake to dry out enough to cut it. So she would bring hard liquor to parties, but other than her, yeah, it's usually like really weak shit, rum and like light Heineken beers, and that was about as good as you got.
Yeah, like never good food either because it's always like diet friendly, healthy food.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Small
like
stuff.
healthy food, but it's like we have a different definition of like my definition of healthy is a steak cooked in butter with broccoli and cauliflower or something like that.
Well,
Their definition of healthy is like finger sandwiches with fucking cucumber on them.
yeah, that's the point. It's a team building exercise. It's not a cut. It's like, dude, don't be making me have to eat celery sticks because you couldn't keep your diet in check the rest of the week, man. Skip a meal or two.
Well, I admit though, like one of the funnier things I've ever done for one of those was when I decided that I didn't like my team that I was going to arrange the team building for.
Yeah.
So I ordered all Indian food, Vindaloo style.
Oh. Here I was thinking, it's like, actually, that wouldn't be too bad. Just a big pile of samosas and tamarind dip. Fuck, I would do that's a team builder I can get behind. But yeah, no, you want Vindaloo. You fucking asshole. A lot of white guys are just losing their shit right there.
Yeah, I was going to order it even stronger, but there's like this understanding that you only get something hotter than Vindaloo if you're Indian or speak Hindi.
Hmm.
Because they will legit ask you if you're like, yeah, do you have anything spicier than Vindaloo? And they'll ask you something in Hindi just to see, you know, is this guy legit or is this a white guy who has no idea what the fuck he's doing?
Well, that's always why I laugh. Actually, we were just. Oh, speaking of which, I'm gonna send you a DM. It's gonna be hilarious. We weren't grocery shopping yesterday, and I thought this would cheer you right up.
I think I know what it is.
Oh, I'm sure you know what it is. There it is. All right. Let me know if it's what you thought it was.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it yet. We'll see.
All right. I did send it to you, right? Oh my god,
Oh,
I
yeah.
tweeted it to the world. It was on your
Yes,
DMs.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Should I tell them? I guess we could. We did it online. We had a
Yeah,
joke.
let's
Like
keep
what?
it as an inside joke.
All right, inside joke it is. All right, guys, we'll put that as like a question mark on the thing here. Back to boss bitches being shitty. The team building stuff, I don't think people understand like how good it can be. Like it's not just like the good stuff, the paintball stuff. I think hardship is kind of like a part of it. Something has to be stupid enough that you have a story afterwards and there's a secret you all have to keep amongst yourselves. I think that's the key to like good team building. And I think that's why there's no good team building anymore, because too many women are absolutely afraid to offer ammunition to their frenemies at work. Hey, Marty.
Kinda.
You know what? She gave you free box wine. Maybe fucking get off her back for once in your life. God damn it. Thank you, by the way. He's not the stepfather. He's the father who stepped up for me.
Fair enough.
But you know what I mean? I'm thinking about this, and it was after the military. Like golfing, I think was the tamest team building exercise we ever had, and that was good. I think that was fine. I liked that. But then a lot of guys always have golf bags that have like the Mickey of alcohol pocket in them and the 6-pack pocket.
Yeah, I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, we had like this paint and sip thing. Have you ever been to one of those?
No, I've never heard of it.
Essentially, you pay a company to come to your place of business or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they bring like canvases, they bring paint, and everyone is supposed to sit there and drink wine and paint all evening. And usually
Oh.
they have like something that everyone's supposed to paint. And it's like such a lame team building exercise, but it's such a great day drinking exercise.
I think that's all that girls know how to do to make things fun. Is all they know how to do is be drunk. Like what's that Rolo quote where it's gamer girls, like the only girl game is to show up and bring beer. It's like that's their team building experience.
At the
Something
same
that
time,
anybody can do.
but like, how many like pictures have you gotten where your girl is on Girls' Night or something, and you're like, "Holy shit, that's lame."
Yeah. Oh, all of them. Every single one. Even like the Halloween one where they have like a little fashion show. It always reminds me of like 6-year-old girl tea parties. And like as the team building exercise. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, aren't these supposed to be grown adults? I keep thinking, is this the infantilization of like adult life? Or what do they call it? Delayed adolescence? But you actually kind of got me thinking now. It's just risk averse quote unquote team building.
Yeah, I think that's all it really is. It's just women don't want to take risks. I still remember how petrified this one chick who was doing team building was when she got us out. And like, she thought we were just going to do a small hike, and we were essentially on ropes climbing up a fucking mountain.
Awesome.
And the entire way up, she's like, "I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for this, guys. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be this strenuous." And all the guys were like, "This is fucking fun."
Yeah.
Fucking
Dude, I was
around
like,
with
that sounds
rope
like
and
the
shit.
best thing ever.
And then all the girls are like, "I'm not sure if we want to do this anymore." Like, one girl is petrified, like 40, 50 feet up on the wall, just clinging onto the rope for dear life until an instructor climbs up and gets her down.
Hey, you know the worst part too? I bet you the guys probably liked that girl more because there was like a thing you could poke fun at her about, you know? Oh, you're the one afraid of heights. You can run with that joke for a while, and I don't think girls understand that little bit of banter is like a team building thing.
Well, I think that's one of the things we could use the last, at least some of the remaining 20 minutes of the show on is the difference between male bonding in the workplace versus female bonding in the workplace. Because I think that plays into both the boss and the office dynamics thing.
Oh, 100%.
No matter where I've been in corporate, banter between guys is the ultimate bonding. That and drinking.
Usually together.
Like, usually guys banter with each other, and then girls, they say that they're cute. They just call everyone cute. "Oh, that's such a cute outfit. That's such nice makeup. I could never wear that." And what she really means is, "You fucking slut."
It's funny too. That's exactly what like thirsty men would say too. Why is it that like girl game is essentially acting like the shitty guy that no girl would sleep with? I wish there was like sperm or is expensive Avosite because then we could have the lamest stuff and it would still work. That'd be awesome.
Well, I do think that like the whole reason for it is, and I think that's the reason why a lot of guys are kind of striking out or ending up with one-nightists or whatever too. It's that they never really learn game, and they kind of approach women from the perspective of, if I become like them, they will like me. But they don't realize that no girl likes other girls.
What a wonderful way of putting it.
Like, well, it's a bit exaggerated, like, yeah, but if you look at how girls really talk, like when a girl says, "Oh, that outfit is so cute, I could never wear that," she's either insulting the girl by calling her a slut if the outfit is revealing, or she's calling her that she's not good with fashion or knows how to dress herself.
Yeah. And that's the subtext thing, which a lot of people just don't like. Guys don't understand the subtext behind any conversation, and they just treat it like a surface thing. Again, a lot of reason why they strike
And the
out.
problem is, like, the guys who try and go for that female approach, they don't understand the subtext, so they actually think that the girl is complimenting the other girl.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a YouTube video a while back of like a couple that are going to like a dinner party or something, and they don't have wine with them. And the hostess opens and she's like, "Oh, hi, welcome. I'm glad you can make it. Oh, you didn't bring wine. Wine. Oh, well, that's fine." And the wife turns to her husband like, "That fucking bitch." And the husband's like, "What do you mean? She said it was okay. We didn't bring wine." No, that fucking bitch. And she has this whole explanation of what was just said.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how to get a guy, and that's the weirdest part. Like this is why I think a lot of guys. It's not just I don't like my female boss. I think a lot of guys are dissatisfied with corporate. I mean, obviously I was because I said fuck it. I'd rather write a book, but like they don't understand any of this Machiavellian stuff. And I think we can call subtext like a Machiavellian thing to understand how to talk.
Yeah, it's the same thing as power talk, really.
Yeah. And I don't think, even if it was an all male space, I think it would still be there. Maybe not to the same extent, maybe not in like very mundane things, but I know for a fact C-suite is all about power talk amongst each other and subtext shit and implications.
Yeah, and Irish Alpha has a good one here too. Like our government is trying to impose gender quotas on boardrooms of private enterprises now. Power that is gifted is abused, and these female managers tend to relentlessly bully other females. I agree with that. And Germany actually did that for their banks some years ago.
Right.
And what they found was that the average male board member of a bank had a PhD in economics or finance or whatever, and on average 20 years experience. And the average female had had a master's degree and about five to 15 years of experience. Jesus. And that's going to be a problem just on the basis of uneven qualifications.
But I mean, that's been going on for years. Military had it too. With like, we had 2 separate fitness standards for all people to stay in the military, and the girls' one was so laughably low, and some chicks were still failing it. But they would just kind of ignore it, and they eventually switched up the whole fitness regime so that there was almost no standards at all. So I don't know where that's the thing. Like there's standards differences, but where's the tipping point? And this is the part that gets me. Are the standards not required? In which case, it's all just been a big facade anyway. Or are they required, and we're actively harming something by not adhering to good standards of, like you said, the PhD in that? And I don't know which it is at this point.
In the military, I think it's probably that they're needed, but it's not correct to enforce them. Because the U.S. Marines, I think it was, did this like huge fucking study on female frontline combatants. And what they found was that not only do they get injured more than their male counterparts, the units are actually worse when they have all female is worse, co-ed is worse, just on the basis that, let's say you're jumping down off, let's say a 6'5" high wall.
Right.
In full gear. Men have tougher bones, so they don't get the same kind of stress fractures and microfractures that women get when they do that jump.
I remember seeing that. It was, stress fractures and repetitive motion injuries were like the big ones for females in combat roles. It was never like they weren't getting shot by enemies. It was just literally the rigors of the day-to-day stuff.
And then for boardrooms and for leadership roles, I think that will naturally kind of work itself out. Like we've been hearing about, we need more women in tech for like the last decade. And I'm all for that, but that means you have to kind of find women who want to get a degree in tech, and you need to get as many of them as there are men. Because it doesn't make sense,
does it?
Well, let's say theoretically that you want 50% of the leadership positions to be female.
Right.
In an industry that's 90% male. How does that math work out? If you actually have 50-50, then women are overrepresented.
Pretty much. But I mean, that is what we have now. I've been in elevators at the Big Five. Same thing. Girls were talking about, I went to go work for here because, they were just promoting girls left and right. Like they and it's not a, what do you call it? And it's not an emergent strategy. People actively do this stuff. And you're right. Like who's going to join this stupid, nerdy guy company? Well, girls that just want power and they don't really care about the industry. But then again, we've managed to close down Canada's economy for a year, yet we still haven't gone bankrupt yet. So I don't know how far we can push this.
I just think we're at a point now where, though, part of our flaunting now is being able to be inefficient to a very high degree without people fucking dying.
Yeah.
I think that's a social thing with us, just on the basis that we can have women in frontline combat because we're not currently at a war. or we can have incompetent people in leadership positions without the company falling over. Because I think if you go into most like large companies, like not even large, but most companies with more than 30 employees,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start to have a lot of fat on them. Like people you don't need, people who just create trouble, people who aren't worth their salary, and so on. And you're going to have like the Pareto distribution there, where about 20% of your people are going to do 80% of what makes the company run.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with female bosses or whatever, but
Well, that's evolutionary psych. Jeff Miller, The Mating Mind, that's exactly what he talks about. The more irrational a system is, the more likely it is it's a social signal. To signal, was it either affluence or, like you said, waste. I can waste my time doing this. The diamond rings of corporate culture. I can be useless at my job and still make money.
well, it's like Jeff Miller said the same thing about humor. It's technically a fitness display because it's using intelligence for something that is inefficient.
Look at that. It's too bad that he's getting in fights now. Chesty showed me in tweet, I guess some guy who's like a reporter, Jeff Miller and Jack Murphy were getting into a fight with some guy over Polly being high IQ. And I was like, oh, guys, I don't know if that's the take you want to make, but whatever. It's your girlfriend and wife. You do what you want.
That sounds like an interesting argument, but I don't know, man. I think the whole Polly thing is sort of weird, but let's get the super chats out of the way before we start talking.
Polly. Well, it is corporate culture. All right, so Wando is just adding on to it. Several companies now have KPIs for gender distribution on management, inflating middle management with girls. If you're not a guy yet, there or above, dead. Yeah, military, same thing. They knew if you were like a girl, a minority girl, protected class, you were always shooting up through the ranks. They always would inflate your evaluations, so it would always look legit, but everybody just kind of knew this one already. A lot of guys just like, oh, whatever, I like my job now and I don't care, but I don't know. There's a lot of male talent. I'm just wondering, like, what do they do when they get disenfranchised with this idea that just because I don't have tits, I'm not going to make it? I don't know what happens to them. I know a lot of them end up leaving. I just don't know what they do.
Yeah, they probably find other places. And it's kind of unfortunate, too, because inflating middle management is a way to make your company very inefficient because the job of any middle manager is to control a certain section of the company.
Right.
Well, the more control you have, the less production you have. It's the same thing as with security and usability. If you dial up security, usability goes down. Dial up usability, security goes down. Dial up administration, production goes down.
I guess that's the question. Although with automation, I think is the big driver, isn't it? Everybody thinks it's immigration, but it's mostly that. Everything is so automated now. Like I see it in my girls' company, the operations side, almost all automated. It's all software and it's all robots and it's all systems that are already put in place or outside vendors. That's a black box. You don't have to care. And the inside is so weirdly inefficient. And I think so long as they don't fuck with the black box, it's all fine.
Well, I also think that most people know that at least part of what they do for a living is bullshit. So they kind of play into it. So everyone's pretending that they're working their ass off. In reality, they have about 30 hours a week of actual work and like 10 Facebook, or probably more like 50-50.
Dude, I remember we talked about this like a year ago when I first started to do this work from home thing, where I do what everybody does apparently who starts their own like business, is you work 16-hour days because you feel guilty that you can work in your bathrobe or whatever. You're like, yeah, I got to keep it going. And then you finally realize, like, I didn't leave the corporate world to work longer hours because I feel guilty that I don't have to. And then you get to that nice zone where you realize, oh my God, how much time did I waste in my corporate life where I can basically get everything done I would have gotten done at that job in like 2 or 3 hours at home and then have the rest of my day to go skiing. It's the weirdest thing.
I think that's going to be one of the more interesting things with COVID.
Uh-huh.
Because you actually have companies now who are like, fuck this, we don't need to have people at the office. We need to have like one conference room and 4 desks for team meetings, and that's about it. Think about how much real estate is taken up by companies that have like open plan offices for like 7 floors.
Oh yeah, what do they call that? The square footage per employee cost, something like that. Canada had a big thing with government finding out. They tried to get $300 a square foot down to $75. And you're right, just from extra floor space, getting rid of it.
And the whole point, from my perspective, was how many people are going to go back to being at the office 5 days a week? I think it's going to be hard to get everyone who's been working from home and argue like, well, guys, you have to come back into the office now. Well, why? Because that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah, but we've been working from home for like a year and a fucking half. So, well, it's only been a year. It feels like a year and a half.
It's the big introvert extrovert divide. Extroverts are pissed. They want to go back to the office because for them it's like a social release. The introverts are just completely done with it. I don't know who's going to win this battle either.
I think we're going to land on something like a 3-2 model where like you have a couple of days at the office, 3 days at home, and then next week maybe 3 days at the office, 2 days at home.
See, I was thinking it was going to be more precision than that. Like for meetings, be there for meetings with clients, maybe like a big team building meeting or like a big progress meeting, like weekly or monthly, something like that. But it won't be like be in for Monday. It'll be here for this meeting. Although we'll probably get a bunch. I mean, everybody's going to be trying different things to see what works. I know one company.
I just think it's going to be.
Oh, sorry. One company.
Very hard.
Very hard.
I think it's going to be hard to force people back on the commute. Because now you can easily make the argument that, hey, listen, we did our job, the company worked fine, and we worked extra hours because we didn't have to commute. This is a win-win, and you can reduce office space by 70%.
Yeah. Oh yeah, having your own like desk is probably a thing of the past. You're going to go to the Deloitte model where it's just we have 20 desks, reserve one for the day you're coming in. I guarantee that's 100% going to happen everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Which sucks, because that means a lot of homes are going to be filled with a whole bunch of stupid fucking knickknacks. People will go back to putting their diplomas on their wall again. You know, the wall of me? I don't know if you ever had one of those offices.
I had one right over my desk.
Oh, nice. All your degrees, you shaking hand with super celebrities.
Well, it helps distract people from why do you have a fucking boom mic over your desk?
Fair enough. We'll see. The only thing I got left for my wall of me is my my orders, my naval orders. The Order of Magellan, the Order of the Ditch, the Order... I actually went through the Suez without fucking hitting the side there. Just saying. Female captains, man. Every goddamn time.
And let's see. Yeah, what the Ugly D super chat here is brilliant. Like, if you have a thirsty client, send a hot girl.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the opioid crisis happened? It was just hot chicks peddling OxyContin.
I was going to say, that was the big example. The medical, what do they call them? There's a position for it. Medical PR or something like that. They'd come in, bring the guy a bunch of free wine and stuff. Here's a bunch of Prozac. Here's the new research on Prozac. Here's the executive summary. That's all you need to know. That's why I'm surprised people didn't know more about this. Like during the COVID thing where everybody's like, trust the doctors. I'm like, dude, GPs don't know shit. GPs listen to what pharmaceutical companies tell them because they give them cool gifts. And I'm not going to have this guy tell me all of a sudden what's this, that, the other thing. Why do you need to go to school for 8 years, Carl, just so you can hand out referrals? I'm not even joking. Oops.
Okay,
Work from home is destination fat city. Probably, but keep in mind, too, the guys that have those horrible commutes live in the suburbs, so they're already fat. Because there's nothing to do out there.
And I do think that if you reopen fucking gyms and then people work from home, I think they're going to want to get the exercise from somewhere, and it's going to be easier than ever to get to a gym because you don't have to spend 2 hours a day commuting.
That's true. I will say the best part about the city, like whatever, I hate COVID, I hate all the quarantines. I have never not found a parking spot downtown ever. Doesn't matter where I'm going or when. I can walk everywhere. I haven't heard honking that's waking me up at 5 a.m. I just realized all the problems that living in the city happen are because of suburb people coming in here and shitting it up, and they're gone now, and it's fucking great.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and all the downtown people that live here, those are the ones walking. So like foot traffic and people, still as many people as ever. It's just the cars.
Yeah, and I like not having cars.
Yeah. One sec. Philbert here is worried about his COVID weight. I'm like, everybody gets a little bit of COVID weight. Yeah, like in a small, like you need cars, and cars can be a fun like thing to drive if you're just fucking around, like as a like dirt biking or just driving around. But day to day, if I don't need one, I definitely wouldn't use it at all. I don't use it. Even now, my girl yelled at me last night because I'm always the one driving your ass around like Miss Daisy. I'm like, I don't like driving. You're the one that wanted the Lexus. Get in it.
Oh yeah, the Lexus. That's like code for I want to get parking tickets.
Yeah. It's a hatchback though, so it's Lexus
Yeah,
did
but
what all
it's
the designer ones did. They're like, how can we make this appeal to soccer moms? But it
well,
fits
yeah,
the
you have to
dogs.
you have to kind of keep in mind here that when people parking attendants write tickets, if they see like an old beer or a Ford or something, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to bother ticketing that fucker. But if they see a Lexus or a Mercedes or a Ferrari, best believe your ass, they're going to go over there like, yeah, this asshole is getting a double fine.
Oh yeah, they'll be doing that. Montreal was horrible for that because the guys got paid commission for how many parking tickets they got. And they would always slip like 20% of their tickets would be ones that you could fight in court and win. And they were just banking on that people weren't going to be arsed to show up with the expensive cars to go fight a $100 parking ticket and just pay it. It was fucking brutal. Ooh, here's a good one.
Yeah, like I don't do a lot of financial modeling myself, but I'm always going to recommend The Intelligent Investor and Security Analysis by Benjamin Graham because those give you everything you need about the basics and how to understand companies. And then if you want to model it, you can. I just never found it that useful. They have monkeys that do modeling at investment banks.
What's what I was thinking? How useful are they? Because they got guys working full time, they have like PhDs just for financial modeling. And I don't see financial firms doing much better than that. It's always something simple that they exploit and they can drive it into the ground that tends to work well. But fancy financial models never seem to pan out. Is that
Well, I
just
think
like the adding waste as a social signal thing again, or what? Or am I just stupid?
no, I just think it's when you're trying to model complex systems, it doesn't matter what kind of system,
Yeah.
you're always going to have variables that you're not taking into account.
Which makes sense. It's really complex. Economies always
Yeah.
are.
And but all those little mistakes, if you do them on a gigantic scale, have a huge influence. Like, let's say you make a rounding error at one point in a huge model. It could be financial, epidemiological, whatever.
Right.
The consequences of that tiny mistake can potentially be huge over a long period of time. Well, like the easiest one is I remember a few years ago where someone's like, one of the top 10 risks for companies is Microsoft Excel.
I'm laughing because that's so true. Oh, dude, what was there was some crisis. I can't remember which one it was. It was before COVID, but the whole reason the thing exists is because some guy forgot to, like, his Excel spreadsheet screwed up and it, like, fucked a world economy or something like that. Maybe it was the housing crisis or something. Fuck, you must know what I'm talking about. I remember it was, like, the biggest deal. It's like
Sorry, I
equivalent
wasn't
of
paying
finding that all the
attention.
COVID
Radar
modeling
was
was wrong because somebody forgot to carry the one. It was literally that.
Yeah, well, you can have those issues, and I agree with the Rainer that the data is often robust and the recommendations are solid, but for the most part, people don't understand financial modeling, and they don't understand the part that goes into it. And the times where you get fat tails or you get other statistical improbabilities, it's like there was like a huge investment fund that was set up that had like 3 Nobel laureates in economics on the board. And they were going to revolutionize currency trading. And what happened was they accounted for everything except everything going to shit at once. Because like, normally the way a hedge fund works is that you have something that you're fairly sure is going to be up,
Right.
and then you take the exact opposite. So essentially you hedge
literally a
your
hedge.
investment. So let's say you know that, okay, the US dollar and the Chinese yuan work conversely. So when the dollar goes up, the yuan goes down. When the yuan goes up, the dollar goes down.
Okay.
If you put equal amounts in each hand of those currencies, you're going to be flat. And that's what hedge funds do. They have a large portfolio to try and minimize
Risk?
direct risk. But you don't account for systemic risk in the same way because you can never get rid of systemic risk.
Well, I mean, that's why it's systemic.
So once the entire financial market crashed, the kind of setup they had in that investment fund just meant that they were seriously fucked. Yeah, long-term capital management, that's the name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I remember that, because that was the issue. Oh, well, if they go bankrupt, then we're covered because these things are insured. But then they didn't count on the fact that if two or three big ones fail at the same time, which they're all invested in the same material, so they would, then the insurance will basically lose out because they can't pay all that. It's like a bank run. They didn't account for that. Maybe it was the 2008 crisis where
that was 2008 because what happened there in 2008 was you didn't take into account a lot of things really, but the insurers didn't take into account that if all these things fell through, they would have a huge run on the insurance companies. If the insurance companies go bankrupt, they can't pay out the investment banks. If the investment banks don't get the money, then they go bankrupt. And if those are tied into like retail banking, then that goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like one thing goes wrong and the entire system fails. And that's where you got the term too big to fail there, because we've actually gotten ourselves into an annoying position where you don't have the risk of bankruptcy for some companies. And capitalism without bankruptcy is like Christianity without hell.
I like that reference. I was like, where's he going to go with the Christianity one? How is he going to talk about child diddlers? It's like having Catholicism without male buggery.
I do. No, like I agree,
and it's buggery. Dude, it happens here. There's a bunch of there's a few companies that are like very Canadian, and just from a national pride standpoint, the government will refuse to let them fail. They always bail them out at the end. And it's nice though, because my investment strategy during COVID, I'm like, well, everything's going to shit here. There's some companies to invest in, and sure enough, they're all starting to get bailouts, and they're all never going to fail. Done really well for me. Not as well for you with that weed stock you did that's like went up 3 times earnings, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually looking to get back into that one now because it just had a drop, so it's back at 15 US.
Which is that one? The Tellery?
Yeah, Aphria.
Aphria?
They didn't merge yet, but
really?
I'm going to check that out just for fun now. Just curious to see if that a little hedge thing I had going there is still up.
Yeah, guys, we're doing checking stocks on the mealtime. Holy shit, you're right. It dropped from like 22 to 18.
That's the Canadian listed one, the Toronto. But I prefer to deal with the American one.
Well, aren't you fucking whatever? Dude, the Canadian dollar is doing awesome right now.
So essentially, Aphria is now trading at 15 point. Well, Tilray is trading at, there's the quote, 1834.
Tilray, TSX.
Multiplied by.
Oh, man, I just felt the energy just suck right out of here. But whatever. Fuck it. We're talking money right now. Ugly D. Diversified portfolio. Don't be domain dependent.
The hedge is kind of gone now. Or the arbitrage is sort of gone.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, they're running neck and neck right now. Pretty much in sync.
Yeah, they're running at the merger right now. So that means the merger has gone through.
Dude, Carl, I think you did the whole like buy low, sell high thing perfectly. So if you guys don't remember, he was talking about this back in like February. They were going to do a merger. It was going to be a big stock thing. And I took the 6-month view here. It literally, when you started bragging and telling your guys you should have got into this, and I'm getting out, it was literally when it peaked at like $60. And now it's back down to it's like 18, 19. Look at you, you fucking stock trader, you.
Yeah, I was lucky with that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it didn't seem like luck. It seemed like you were kind of set up.
Yeah, but I got raped on a couple other things, but I'm still up about 23% this year so far. So I'm happy with that.
Oh, yeah. That was the best part about COVID. Even now, I'm like you. The last 3 months, I just really didn't look at it. I'm just leaving it alone now. Up probably 100%. Doubled my money from this year. And that's without looking at Bitcoin or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I decided now, though, I'm 50% cash just on the basis that it could go and it could come back to bite me in the ass if all the vaccines go through, we start opening back up. And you get like a return to like the yuppie days.
What do you mean the uppy days? Like everybody starts spending again, you mean?
Well, yeah, like 1985 when everyone was in a good mood, everyone was spending money like fucking crazy.
Uh,
So I think if that happens, we could see a little bit longer. But if you look at the stock market, it's been up all the time during COVID.
hmm It's crazy how
And
much up it's been.
yeah, and it hasn't been a reason because it's a momentum market and momentum markets end. Just not sure when.
That's the problem because I remember 2008 and then late 90s. It was always this. The only metric I have for when it's time to get out of the market is what I call like armchair MMA fighters. I know that makes no sense, but I used to love MMA, single digits, UFCs, loved watching all of them. Huge fan of it. And I remember at one point, it went from like a nerd hobby that certain like super enthusiasts liked to the point that like the fat schlub who wears a hoodie starts talking about arm bars and shit like that. When you're like, this dude hasn't picked up anything heavier than a beer in the last 15 years. Once those guys started getting into the sport, it went downhill. And I find it's when those same guys were telling me about, dude, you got to buy a house. Like literally a year later, 2008 happened. So I'm looking for when a stupid guy starts telling me about this stuff, then I know it's probably done.
Yeah, and
And I
that's
have
kind of
no
what I'm
idea if that's
seeing
right or
now.
not, but what's that?
But I'm seeing that now because a lot of like hobby investors are getting into the market and everyone's loaded up.
Uh-oh.
And I usually see that as a dangerous signal. At the same time, the thing that's different now versus every other time that has happened
Uh-huh.
is that we have record low interest rates all over the world. So, like most places, you lose money by having it in the bank. Like you literally get negative interest some places.
Yeah. Well, isn't
And
it
that
bonds right now? It's supposed to be like the gold standard for investing. They're at negative rates in a lot of places.
Yeah, the biggest problem with that is there's nowhere for the liquidity being pumped into the markets to go. So people are just putting them in stocks, people are putting them in homes or, buying property. And at some point, interest rates are going to have to start moving back up. It's just a question of when, because right now, if you
And how
jacked
much?
interest rates by like 3%, you'd have at least a handful of governments that would go tits up.
Oh, easily. It'd be 2008 all over again with a 3 point increase.
So I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen here, but that's why I'm in like 50% cash. It's just on the basis that I ate my share of losses back in 2008, 9, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to sit here at 6 o'clock in the morning cursing a Greek prime minister because the motherfucker said no to the EU deal, and suddenly I wake up to like my entire portfolio down like 60% overnight.
Oh, dude, that would not be cool. What the hell? Oh yeah, he's asking about GameStop. I think we got to end the thing in like 3 minutes here. So you want to end it off on like this GameStop thing? My only take on it is this is exactly what I'm talking about. That was a small event, but that was a bunch of hobbyist investors being hobbyist investors. And
I
you get
actually
enough
like
people
the
doing that,
idea.
it's gonna fuck it up. I love the idea from like a fuck hedge funds idea.
No, not from that perspective, but
Oh,
everything is based around the concept of checks and balances, right?
right.
And in financial markets, what kind of GameStop was they saw a hedge fund had done something stupid
hmm
and they punished them for it.
Oh, massively, massively.
And it's kind of the same approach I have to anything. Like, let's take my favorite people in the world, the fucking police. If you have effective means of controlling your police, you actually have to convict them when they break the law. Only then will the police actually do their job properly.
Yeah, ultimately it
And
has to be.
and all of this has to do with incentive theory. Because if you let's say you take away let's say you don't have a fruit of the poisonous tree law.
hmm
That a fruit of the poisonous tree law is the law that says that if the police get evidence against you by breaking the law, then that's thrown out in court automatically.
Yeah.
And everything that resulted from that fine is all and that breach of the law is also thrown out. If you don't have that, then the cops can just search people without warrants and then convict them afterwards. And that means you're incentivizing cops to break procedure to get what they want. Same thing with security, to bring it back to that. If you make your Wi-Fi network, hard as fuck to get on for people's phones.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to stop using data. They're going to set up rogue access points. Remember one company we went to where like the head of IT was bragging, like, yeah, we have the most secure fucking thing ever here. And it's like, okay, let me check here. What are these 12 access points?
I'm expecting to see a wireless accent point like stuck up in the wiring shelves.
Well, like one of the funnier ones I saw was like they had a smoking area right outside on like a terrace.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any Wi-Fi out there from the regular network, so they just put like about 20 feet worth of Cat5 cable and put it outside through a window.
Oh, dear Lord.
So, and they didn't take that in when they left for the day either. So that access point was sitting out there with a Cat5 right in. If you wanted to, you could climb up on that fucking terrace, just plug directly into company Wi-Fi.
Oh, dear Lord. Always as secure as the first idiot. Oh, my God. All right, that's a good ending on it. I guess we should end this one. You guys, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't, hey, question, you guys in the audience there, have you not read Gendernomics yet? I put a link in there. You got to check it out. I think you'll like it. It's honestly, and Carl, I'm going to fluff you for a bit. You don't mind, do you?
No, not at all.
The thing I like about Carl's stuff is he's like old school red pill, like Royce, like Rollo. They were just exploring and doing their own thing. Like Royce doesn't mention fucking manosphere drama and shit like that because it didn't exist then because he was too busy just trying to fuck chicks and notice shit. And this is what I loved about Gendernomics. It's kind of like it's red pilled in that it's in a vacuum. And if you haven't read it, the link's in the description. Check out the first one. If and when you like it, do check out the second one. Full disclosure, I did the cover for the second edition of it, so I'm obviously proud of it for my work as well as his, although most of the words inside are more important than the stuff on the outside, so whatever. On that, I got nothing else. I'm going to end the broadcast unless you want to say something.
Nope.
All right.